Hey there, amazing friends. I warmly invite you to join me on this exciting journey by subscribing to my channel, liking, commenting, and sharing my videos. Every like, comment, and share brings us closer together and fuels my passion to create more great content. Your support truly makes all the difference. Thank you for being the heart of this community. Moonlit trails and whispering pines, how otherworldly phenomena hide among ancient woodland groves. The dense canopy of pines stretched as far as the eye could see, an endless sea of evergreen needles that muffled both light and sound. On certain nights, when the moon's silver crescent climbed over the horizon and bathed the forest in a faint glow, the place took on an unearthly atmosphere. Travelers who ventured along those winding trails under moonlight often reported strange voices, half-formed shapes darting behind tree trunks, and unexplained flickers in the corner of their vision. Local folklore attributed these occurrences to the forest's ancient spirit, whispering across centuries and defying modern explanations. Officially, it was only the wind hissing through tall conifers, or illusions caused by the interplay of moonlight and drifting fog. Yet, the watchers of such phenomena, the amateur investigators, the midnight hikers, and the local villagers who inherited tales from their grandparents, knew there was more to the story. In these groves, some intangible presence seemed to lurk, weaving illusions over shadow illusions, forging an unstoppable hush that enveloped even the bravest souls with awe and apprehension. For as long as anyone could recall, the region's name had been simply the Vale of Pines, although older manuscripts occasionally referred to it by more poetic titles: the Land of Whispers, the Twilight Grove, or the Forest of Forgotten Echoes. Each label carried its own mythic undertones, hinting that something intangible bound the land to a past older than recorded history. The local villagers were neither naive nor overtly superstitious, yet they handled this forest with a mixture of respect and circumspection. Children were warned not to wander in after dusk. Hunters were taught certain courtesies, quietly reciting a short prayer before venturing to bag game. Even the region's weather patterns seemed to conspire in the forest's mystique. Swirling mist regularly settled among the pines, and the stillness was so pronounced that it felt as though the entire grove held its breath, waiting. One might ask what created such a deep hush around these woods. Some watchers point to the forest's geology. The region is a cradle of ancient stone, thick with labyrinthine caverns. Others note a curious absence of typical forest fauna, a few deer or wolves, but fewer birds than expected, as though the pines themselves deterred them. Myths from the local tribes, some predating the area's official settlement, offer a wilder explanation. They speak of a primal entity dwelling among the oldest stands of timber, an entity that siphons sound or thrives on silence. This entity, sometimes depicted as a figure woven of swirling bark and needle green, occasionally chose certain nights to manifest, drifting between pines like a silent wraith. According to these legends, those who saw it never came back quite the same, carrying an unshakable hush in their hearts. The Watchers interpret these stories as either pure folklore or possible references to a rare phenomenon of intangible illusions overshadow illusions. Over the centuries, the Vale of Pines remained largely untouched by the changes that shaped the surrounding regions. A single narrow road wound through it, connecting a handful of hamlets scattered around its periphery. The Watchers from outside found little cause to explore the forest's interior, which offered no farmland nor obvious resources. Thus, it remained a domain of old memories and local custom, unspoiled but also uncharted in any rigorous sense. Only in the last century did a wave of adventurous hikers, naturalists, and eventual paranormal researchers begin to trickle in. Among them was an intrepid naturalist named Clarissa Dunn, whose letters from the early 1900s stand as a pivotal record of the forest's uncanny dimension. Having spent months in a small cabin near the forest's heart, she wrote about the mesmerizing effect the moonlit nights had on the entire ecosystem. Even the wind refuses to blow at times, as if the pines themselves hush it. In that deep silence, I sense watchers, shapes that fade when I approach, but their presence is tangible, like a breath on my neck. She also described hearing distant murmurs, akin to voices speaking in unison, though no one else was around. Clarissa's letters ended on a cryptic note about discovering footprints deep in the moss, human-like but elongated, with a swirl of pine needles pressed into each step. She left abruptly, citing personal reasons. Some watchers suspect she glimpsed something beyond rational comprehension. In the decades that followed, sporadic accounts of bizarre sightings emerged. A traveling merchant claimed to see ghostly lights weaving between the pines at dusk, forming a ring that flickered like faint orbs. A group of hikers told of hearing a lullaby like humming in an otherwise deserted grove, each note resonating with the hush of the pines. None of these watchers could produce conclusive evidence, just personal testimonies or blurred photographs that might have been lens flares. Skeptics naturally dismissed it all as illusions overshadow illusions, fueled by overactive imaginations. Still, the watchers, those who believed something truly extraordinary lay beneath the forest's hush, remained committed. They set up camera traps, audio recorders, and nighttime stakeouts, gleaning only a few ephemeral anomalies. A camera might catch fleeting silhouettes that could be illusions of moonlit branches. Audio might pick up faint, unexplainable murmurs that vanished in the hush. The watchers found themselves chasing shadows, but that chase itself fueled an ever-growing sense of the forest's intangible mystique. Then, in the late 1970s, a local professor of folklore, Dr. Marta Bennington, took an academic interest in the Vale of Pines. She systematically interviewed villagers, collecting their family tales about the grove's hush, the spirit of the trees, and moonlit illusions overshadow illusions. Many recounted the same bizarre detail. On certain nights, often around the solstices or equinoxes, an aura of absolute silence fell across the forest. Birds, insects, even the wind seemed to pause. Some watchers believe that moment signaled the forest's heartbeat, a fleeting interval when the pines breathed as one, forging illusions overshadow illusions that might lure unsuspecting travelers deeper into the grove. A handful of older villagers admitted that their grandparents spoke of never crossing the shadow line during these intervals for fear of being lost forever. Dr. Bennington's notes, compiled into a treatise titled Whispering Pines, a folkloric study, concluded that the forest's legend was a tapestry woven of nature's hush and centuries of local superstition. She remained neutral on whether supernatural phenomena truly lurked there, but her careful documentation served as a thorough compendium of the Watcher's own stories. In the 1990s, a new wave of Watchers arrived, armed with more advanced technology, night vision equipment, EMF sensors, digital audio recorders. A paramystic group calling themselves the Lunar Seekers organized multiple expeditions during full moons, believing the forest's hush might be at its peak. They reported recurring anomalies, shadows flitting across vantage points, odd temperature fluctuations localized to small areas, and the sense of intangible watchers. One of the group's members, a journalist named Henry Clark, wrote extensively about his personal experiences. He claimed to have discovered an ancient standing stone deep within the forest, etched with runic symbols that predated known local scripts. Under the moonlight, Clark saw faint luminous lines weaving between the runes, as though the stone resonated with unseen energies. However, on returning by daylight, he could not even locate the stone's clearing. Many watchers labeled Clark's story improbable, suspecting illusions overshadow illusions. Clark insisted it was real, pointing to peculiar cuts on his arms from briars that formed a pattern reminiscent of the runes. He interpreted them as possible evidence of crossing some threshold. The watchers who read Clark's accounts found them enthralling but inconclusive. The watchers also discovered another strange thread, references to a phenomenon dubbed the Silver Hush. In diaries spanning decades, a recurring claim described how the entire forest seemed to slip into a suspended state at certain pre-dawn hours under a bright moon. The watchers recorded testimonies of travelers who found themselves unable to proceed or turn back, as if an invisible barrier pinned them in place, forcing them to witness fleeting visions of intangible shapes moving among the pines. Some watchers interpret these visions as remnants of old illusions, overshadow illusions, a possible communal hallucination triggered by atmospheric conditions. Others see them as glimpses of some primal forest spirit or parallel dimension. Regardless, the watchers note that those who experience the silver hush often describe feeling an overwhelming sense of calm or sorrow, akin to connecting with a living memory of the forest itself. More recently, a small environmental research station set up at the forest's edge for routine climate monitoring inadvertently captured data that hinted at an unexplainable phenomenon. The station's instruments occasionally logged spikes in electromagnetic readings on nights correlated with the watchers' reported sightings. The spikes were brief, typically lasting only minutes, yet they recurred multiple times throughout the year in patterns that defied standard explanation like solar storms or local electronics. The watchers latched onto this data as partial scientific backing for the forest's intangible hush. Meanwhile, official statements from the research station were subdued, acknowledging unusual electromagnetic anomalies, but refusing to speculate. The watchers who interpret these anomalies see it as an unstoppable illusions overshadow illusions scenario, evidence that the forest might harbor energies beyond conventional understanding. Others remain unconvinced, chalking it up to instrument malfunctions or sporadic interference from unknown local sources. Some watchers propose that a hidden phenomenon in the forest might revolve around microclimates or geological formations, like pockets of natural radioactivity or crystalline deposits. These watchers reference known but rare phenomena of quartz-bearing rock producing piezoelectric fields under stress. Possibly the forest's hush is linked to subtle shifts in bedrock that cause momentary illusions overshadow illusions. But as watchers rummage deeper, they find no conclusive geological surveys. The terrain remains mostly uncharted. Meanwhile, the older watchers remain convinced that no purely scientific explanation can capture the forest's intangible sense of presence. They say illusions overshadow illusions, unstoppable hush overshadow illusions. Words fail them, so they return to describing personal experiences that defy classification. At the heart of these persistent legends stands a single question. Does the forest truly harbor otherworldly phenomena, or is it a grand tapestry woven by centuries of rumor, local tradition, and natural illusions? The watchers see illusions overshadow illusions in the swirl of contradictory stories. Some watchers have tried cross-referencing each account to find consistent details. They discovered that certain spots in the forest recurred in multiple sightings: a clearing near a bend in a creek, a rocky outcrop shaped like a sleeping giant, an ancient oak rumored to be a gateway tree. The watchers interpret these as hotspots. Yet even so, attempts to systematically stake out these hotspots rarely yield more than intangible glimpses or ephemeral audio anomalies. The watchers see unstoppable illusions overshadow illusions. The phenomenon always seems one step ahead. One story stands out for its disturbing clarity. A local father and daughter took an evening stroll on the outer trail, planning to watch the moon rise. The father recounted how they saw a faint glow among the pines, as if a group of luminous figures or orbs danced. The watchers interpret that as typical ghost lights or will-o'-the-wisp illusions. But the father swore they heard voices in unison, chanting something melodic yet incomprehensible. The daughter, only 8, said the chanting felt sad and welcoming. They approached closer, but as the father turned on a flashlight, the glow vanished instantly, leaving them alone under the moon. The father felt an unshakable sense that they had just intruded upon an ancient ceremony performed by intangible beings or forest spirits. The watchers heard that story repeated in multiple permutations over the years, watchers stumbling onto a gathering of lights, an intangible hush, and a sense that they narrowly escaped crossing a boundary from which they might not return. In modern times, the watchers might find a comedic parallel in the forest's ephemeral illusions overshadow illusions with the digital age's ephemeral nature. Social media posts about the Vale of Pines occasionally go viral, featuring a snapshot of a strange silhouette among the pines, or a short video capturing echoes of an unexplainable whisper. Skeptics quickly label them hoaxes or illusions overshadow illusions. The watchers, though, note that the phenomenon's ephemeral nature suits an environment that defies easy capture. Possibly the intangible watchers prefer to remain half-hidden, fueling the forest's aura. Meanwhile, tourism boards, always seeking new angles, briefly considered marketing the forest's mystical hush. They soon realized the watchers would object, viewing it as trivializing a phenomenon that locals treat with reverence or caution. Indeed, the watchers say illusions overshadow illusions, unstoppable hush overshadow illusions, a phenomenon too elusive for tourist slogans. Some watchers have approached the idea that perhaps the forest's intangible hush is an emergent property of its ecosystem, akin to how certain tropical jungles produce illusions overshadow illusions in the mind. Maybe the forest's shape, acoustic properties, or biodiversity combine to create illusions of voices and apparitions. The watchers admit it might be purely natural. But then they read diaries from centuries past describing the exact same illusions overshadow illusions. The watchers remain uncertain. They see unstoppable illusions overshadow illusions, an enigma bridging past and present. At last, a partial answer might lie in the realm of intangible synergy between nature and human imagination. The watchers realize that the forest's hush is not just a physical silence, but a psychological vacuum that invites the mind to populate it with illusions overshadow illusions. The watchers see unstoppable illusions overshadow illusions, forging an environment where intangible watchers could dwell. Possibly that intangible synergy fosters experiences that feel genuinely supernatural. Or perhaps the watchers suggest the forest truly hosts a realm bridging normal reality and a parallel plane of existence. Overshadow illusions until ephemeral glimpses surface. The watchers have no consensus, only awe. So the story endures, carrying an unstoppable hush that resonates in the hearts of watchers, travelers, and locals alike. The Vale of Pines remains a domain of quiet, intangible mystery, where illusions overshadow illusions, swirl in the moonlit gloom, and watchers tell of glimpses that defy logic. Even if no final proof emerges, the watchers find meaning in the hush, an echo of a timeless bond between humanity and the silent heart of the wild. And so, on nights when the moon rides high, silver beams weaving between towering pines, one can stand upon a lonely trail, hearing the faintest whispers in the wind. Perhaps it's only the breeze among needles, or perhaps it's something older, intangible watchers drifting among the trees, overshadow illusions. Each observer experiences it differently, but nearly all walk away changed, carrying a hush that lingers in memory. In the morning, sunlight floods the forest, chasing away illusions, overshadow illusions, and the watchers see only benign pine needles shimmering in the breeze. Yet the memory remains, fueling more stories, more diaries, more quiet speculation among watchers who know that at dusk, the moor transforms again into the realm of intangible hush. Unstoppable illusions overshadow illusions, weaving a tapestry that no camera can quite capture. That is how these phenomena hide among ancient woodland groves, living in the boundary between day and night, forging a story that echoes across generations.